how they should relate to journalists. I think that the general attitude of some elements within the security services is that journalists are a bit of a nuisance, especially when you try to poke and find out what is happening, which is your job. There are many, or there are some of them who are unable to tolerate or countenance that, and therefore vent their spleen on journalists in ways that are unlawful and seek to harm journalists. Government condemns this sort of posturing, and in the coming weeks, we will be engaging the heads of the various security agencies to organize a series of activities to draw the attention of all members of Ghana security agencies that journalists are partners and that you have a right to nose around and fish out for information to keep the public informed. Indeed, all manner of people who work within the public space are subject to scrutiny and accountability, and therefore the work you do goes a long way to enhance that. Under no circumstance should you come under attack or any form of harassment because you are doing that. Even when, like all of us, you are also subject to the laws of Ghana. So even if you have trespassed or gone into areas where unauthorized personnel are not allowed, the sanction for that or the response to that cannot be assault. You have to be taken through due process. But I think that more needs to be done to drum home this point. Those who engage in this sort of assault too are not going to walk unscathed. The interdiction is only a first step. It only shows the revulsion of the powers that be at that activity, and is the first line of punishment. Of course, as worrying as the phenomenon of assault and harassment of journalists is, people accused of that also have to go through due process. You cannot apply extrajudicial measures to them because they have assaulted or harassed journalists. So they too have to go through due process as everybody else is entitled to in our land. Sometimes it takes a bit of time, and we know how the judicial system operates. It is well-intentioned, a bit of time, and we know how the judicial system operates. It is well-intentioned to ensure that people who have not committed offenses are not unfairly punished, or that the process to determine their guilt, to the extent that swift action is taken to interdict or suspend or get the persons who are alleged to have engaged in assaults against journalists to step aside pending investigation. It shows that government and the authorities concerned are assaulted. So we will do more going forward to ensure that these things do not recur, or where they recur, swift action is taken. But in terms of the specific cases of assaults, I'm sure that it will not be too difficult to obtain information and apprise you of same. Yes, Akosua.
Akosua Oche from City FM and Channel 1 TV. So I have 3 questions to ask. In the first quarter of 2025, you indicated that government had saved an amount of 400 million cedis out of, or as a result of expenditure cuts at the presidency and restructuring and all of that. It's been 1 year in office. I want to find out from you specific figures, how much you've been able to save as a result of this restructuring in the fiscal year. Secondly, in June last year too, you indicated that government was going to construct at about 600 chip compounds. And I ask you directly because you made the comment or you made the promise. I want to find out from you if these 600 chip compounds you said were going to be constructed at the end of 2025 has been constructed, and when are they going to be operational? My third question has got to do with petitions that have been submitted to the presidency. We know that the last petition that you received, at least from what we were aware of, was a petition on against the EC and then the OSP. We want to find out the status of these petitions and where has it gotten to.
All right, thank you very much, Agosia. On the savings that have been made, arising out of the cost-saving measures that President Mahama has introduced, I'm not sure that I put a specific figure on it. I don't recall ever putting a specific figure. What I can say for certain is that significant savings have been made, and it's not difficult to see why this is so. So, for instance, let's use 2 reference points. There was a time when we had, 125 ministers or so sit. Now, even if you picked the figure of 60, and you did an analysis of what it would require to keep 125 people at posts as ministers and deputy ministers, that alone is significant. Let me give you practical examples. So every minister of state, indeed, if I show you my appointment letter, you will see that there are things that you are entitled to enable you to do your work. One of them is a 4-wheel drive, a Land Cruiser. You are also entitled to a saloon car. These are duty post vehicles. They are not vehicles that are gifted to you. You use them as and when. But often it is the case that a new one is procured, because invariably by the time that a new government comes, what exists may not be roadworthy or may not have the capacity to perform at the high level that is expected. So often a new one will be procured. You are also entitled to accommodation. And that means that existing government bungalows would have to be refurbished for you to move in. If you are not listening to that, if you check my appointment letter, you see that you are entitled to fuel, a certain amount of fuel every week. And then there's a salary that you take, which these days is consolidated to include other perks and emoluments. And then in the days that ex gratia held sway, you will be paid ex gratia, which is 4 months out of every year that you serve in office. Now, the price of one, and I'm sure you all know it, there are some that are more expensive, but I think the standard one is $120,000. A saloon car of the sort that the minister or deputy minister would use is about $50,000 to $60,000, depending on the brand that is purchased for you. Now, if at a point there were 125 ministers, and now there are 60 or even 50, let's say 60, just for purpose of analysis, it means that you are avoiding purchasing 65 Land Cruisers at a unit cost of $120,000. You are not going to buy 65 saloon cars at a cost of between $50,000 to $60,000. You are not going to have to spend money refurbishing 65 bungalows or paying, in lieu of that, 20% of basic salaries of 65 people as rent allowance every month. You don't have to pay fuel. And you know how much it costs to fill a Land Cruiser in a saloon car. So you don't have to pay that. And then you don't have to pay salaries of those people. You don't have to bear their travel costs and other things that they are entitled to. And then when they finish their service, you don't have to pay ex gratia to 65 people. When you put that together, you are talking of tens of millions of Ghana cedis. And that is just for ministers alone. When you come to the presidency, in addition to the 125 ministers that we had under President Akufo-Addo at some point, there was a time when they had up to 361 staff. And I'm not talking presidential staffers. The staff of the office of the president, that is the political staff, are grouped into 2 or 3. There are presidential staffers. I heard somebody say that presidential staffers acted as deputy ministers. No, they are not. In terms of entitlements, they are equivalent to ministers, presidential staffers. So when you hear somebody referred to as a presidential staffer, in terms of entitlements, they don't function as ministers, but in terms of what they earn and their package that goes with their office, they are equivalent to ministers. Presidential aides are equivalent to deputy ministers in terms of their service conditions. And then there are political staff who are staff of the president. There's a legal counsel. And then there are other senior advisors. These advisors don't work alone. They also have staff that they work with. So if you put all of that together, there was a point that we had about 361 under President Akufo-Addo. I think about 41 staffers or so, who by 25 Land Cruisers would come with another 40 Land Cruisers and 40 saloon cars, 40 bungalows, or 40 sets of payments of, rent allowance, 40 sets of payment of fuel for every week, and then all the other conditions that they are attached. So you do not really need a soothsayer to tell you how colossal the cost to government was to have that number of people. The fact and reality now is that we have fewer people in government now than we did under the previous administration. So significant savings have been made. That cannot be disputed. That must be placed on record. The second bit is about the chips compound. Now, it is not my policy. I spoke about it, announced it, but it is government policy. What it is that Akosia, this year, and indeed if you followed the budget for 2026, it was a cardinal policy proposal on many occasions. Now, primary healthcare, the medical experts will tell you, often takes place in lower level health facilities. And when we talk of primary healthcare, we are talking about basic minor diseases, headaches, stomach aches, and non-serious ailments which require attention. Now, currently, the arrangement is such that referral facilities like district hospitals, regional hospitals, tertiary hospitals, and what have you, are burdened with many of these illnesses. So normally it should be a CHIPS compound, a health center, or at most a polyclinic that handles these kinds of ailments. Now, government's policy is that going forward, starting from this year, there should be some segregation. And indeed, if you check the budget, about 1.5 billion Ghana cedis has been earmarked for that, so that these minor ailments are treated at a lower level. Now, the most basic building block in the health sector is a CHIPS compound, which ensures that this level of care is administered. There are many places in Ghana that do not have it. And I come from Abra Sebu Kwamankese, so I know. There are 265 communities, but we have less than 30 CHIPS compounds. So you see the kind of pressure that is brought to bear on the referral facility at Abu Dunkwa, or the health centers that are dotted around Abakrampa and Muri. So to address this gap, government decided that the District Assembly's Common Fund, the disbursement of it should come with guidelines, because, mind you, the president has also said that up to 80% of all monies accruing to the District Assembly's Common Fund should go to the district assemblies, which is a departure from the arrangements under the NPP where disbursements were made at the center and left very little for the districts. In order that the disbursement of those funds align with government's overarching objectives like free primary healthcare and what have you, guidelines were sent. And in those guidelines, every assembly was directed to construct a minimum of 2 CHIPS compounds. There are 261 district assemblies. So that alone gives you in excess of 520 CHIPS compounds. And then there are some that started under the previous administration that have not been finished. If you come to AK, for example, there are 2 or 3 of such which were started but got nowhere. And therefore, they also have to be completed. Now, I can assure you that that project is far advanced. I'm an ex-official member of the District Assembly at AAK, so I know for a fact that if you go to a place called Nyamedom and Uhiaba, we started and are almost done with 2 CHIPS compounds. As I speak to you, the procurement process to buy hospital equipment to furnish those CHIPS compounds are underway. And indeed, we are only a matter of weeks away from commission. I'm sure I'll be doing the commissioning myself. So if you come to AK, you see that that project is very far advanced and only weeks away from commission. And the same can be said for many, many districts in Ghana. And in fact, as I indicated, the local government minister, under whose auspices this initiative, because he has jurisdiction over district assemblies, will be here sometime next week. He can give you a breakdown. I've been in touch with him, and he indicates that they still are collating the specific details and data, and he will give you that. But I can assure you that it is a program that is far advanced, and it will be in fulfillment of government policy of beginning the free primary healthcare initiative this year. Now, you asked about the status of some petitions, specifically the one relating to the special prosecutor and the electoral commissioner and her 2 deputies. Let me indicate that unlike the petition against the Chief Justice, the President's mandate in respect of the petitions against the OSP and the electoral commissioner and her 2 deputies ends with conveying the petition from various individuals and groups, 7 of them against the electoral commissioner and her 2 deputies, and 3 against the OSP, all of which have been sent to the Chief Justice. So the President has no role again in that. And in that regard, we cannot speak to it. I, as the President's spokesperson, cannot speak to it because I honestly do not know where things are. The Chief Justice's outfit will be in a good position to, maybe you may want to send inquiries to the Judicial Secretary for an update. The President will once again be called upon to act in that regard when the Chief Justice is done with determining prima facie whether there is a basis for it. When that happens, the Chief Justice will then set up a committee. In the case of the OSP, there are specific timelines that need to be met, but I don't think that similar timelines exist for the electoral commission and 2 deputies. So once a determination is made one way or the other on the veracity of the petitions so presented, then the President is mandated by law to act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee that will look into those petitions. So that is the process. But as I speak to you, yes, Komla.
Komla Prisha, I work for TV3. There's an embarrassing spectacle that started, I think, somewhere towards the close of last year, there are about very long queues at trotro stations. A lot of people who queue and are unable to have cars to pick to go home. We have not seen a clear directive from the GPRTU with regards to this. An exorbitant charges have been made to these individuals. One, I want to find out, is there an understanding of government's plan to deal with transportation in the capital? And how does the president feel about this embarrassing spectacle of people ordinarily, I mean, he would not like to see them on the street, long queuing as such. Then the second one, we get the indication that the president has directed the suspension of EI 114, which is for the rezoning of the Chimota forest. How true is this, if it's anything to go by, and what's the position of government on this? Then, finally, does the president still hold the view that he will scrap the ex gratia?
Regarding the regrettable congestion that has happened regarding public transport, indeed, I got off the line with the transport minister barely 30 minutes ago. First of all, what has happened is that there are some transport operators who are engaging in rent-seeking behavior. Because ordinarily, transportation is a largely private sector-driven activity in Ghana. We have these transport unions, GPRTU and what have you, who organize transport systems that convey the generality of our people. For some reason, after the persistent reduction in fuel prices, which led the transport organizations to announce a 15% reduction in transport fares, there are some operators within the system who thought that they could engage in rent-seeking behavior by creating artificial shortages. So, come like you and I know that if, for instance, you wanted a vehicle from, say, the heart of the Kwame Nkrumah interchange or circle, as we used to call it, to Achimota, you will go to a particular spot at the station where you know you are most likely to catch such a vehicle. Now, some of these operators do not go to the designated spots. They roam to part with more money than they should ordinarily pay. They are creating scarcity to drive up prices so that they can engage in rent-seeking behavior. It is unlawful activity, and it must be looked at. Government indeed is looking at it to ensure that those engaging in that activity are brought to order, because there's an agreement between government and the transport unions to fix transportation prices twice a year, unless some extraordinary circumstance dictates otherwise. So we urge the transport operators to adhere to the normal practice that we have known all these years and avoid this rent-seeking behavior, which is needlessly creating difficulties for passengers and commuters. The second issue is that you will recall that when the matter first arose, the Minister for Transport took decisive action by getting STC to release dozens of vehicles to augment what existed in the private sector. And this arrangement largely worked. It eased the situation significantly. We all know that during the festive season, there's an upsurge in passenger numbers. Understandable, because people want to get items from the business district or other. We note that the rent-seeking behavior still persists. So the minister informs that he has asked the STC to put back the vehicles on the road. In addition to that, there are quite a number of Metro Mass buses that had broken down. So he has ordered their expedited servicing to ensure that in a matter of days, they are back on the road. But they will operate outside of their normal routes and schedules in order to take care of the present congestion that is going on. The minister also informs me that I think tomorrow or so, he has requested for a meeting with the GPRTU and other transport operators to address the issue of rent seeking, to call those engaged in that activity to order so that the hardship is alleviated. But ultimately, an increasing role in the transport sector, but it is largely private sector driven. So these private sector players must play by the rules and avoid unfair exploitation of passengers through the creation of artificial scarcity in order to drive up price. There's no justifiable basis for wanting to engage in rent-seeking behavior at this time when there's evidence of reduction in fuel prices, imported materials like spare parts. I've also come down. The evidence is clear. If you go to the port, duty payments for container loads of spare parts have come down significantly. I have figures here that I can share with you. There can be no excuse for wanting to do what they are doing at the moment, and therefore we urge them to desist, or action will be taken to enforce the appropriate bylaws and regulations. On EI 114, I would have to get back to you on that. I would have to get the details of it. I'm not able to confirm the suspension or revocation of SIM, but there's something I can get in touch with you and clarify subsequent to this address. Thank you very much. Yes, if you would remind me, please. But I think the president has made it clear. It was a major campaign promise. What happens is that, as I indicated to you, you serve in public office. So in itself, it is not much. What creates a problem is that our constitution is such that it says that every president should set up an emoluments committee to determine the conditions of service of a category of people that we call Article 71 office holders. So what happens is that when you come to office, the salary that I take now is the salary of my predecessor, the last salary of my predecessor, because before the government left office, an emoluments committee determined their salary. So the salary that all government officials appointed by President Mahama are taking is what they inherited. There has been no increase whatsoever. It's what they inherited from the previous administration, except that it was determined just before they left office. So invariably, what your position requires that you take at TV3. But for some reason, that 2,000 a month is not fixed until the latter part of your tenure there. But your predecessor was taking 1,500 cedis, so that's what you are paid. Then a month or so for you to finish your tenure, it is determined that you should actually take 2,000. So that means that you have to be paid an additional 500 cedis for every day or every month that you worked in the government that was leaving. So this back pay is also paid. And then when it is added to ex gratia, it makes the amount appear huge. But ex gratia itself, for the avoidance of doubt, is 4 months' salary for every year that you work. So for example, if I work for 4 years, it is 4 months of my salary for every year. So it is 16 months' salary. That in itself may not be too much, but it is the back pay of 4 years that then creates the impression that the amount is big. But the president accepts the long-standing consensus of Ghanaians that it creates a disparity between different categories of workers, and therefore something needs to be done. So the phenomenon as it exists now will no longer continue. Indeed, the president has said, and he actually recommended for the Constitution Review Commission to factor it in their report, I think it is in there, that an independent emoluments committee be set up. It's a standing committee that works all year round. It is not formed in the twilight of any government. So they will do an independent assessment of the level of work that public officials put in vis-a-vis other categories of public workers, and come to a determination that is fair and balanced and avoids the huge gulf that exists between Article 71 office holders and other categories of public sector workers. Once this is done, I'm sure that it will put an end to the perennial uproar that greets the announcement of ex gratia payments and what have you. So President Mahama is very much committed to the promise that he made to the people of Ghana. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Eya of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you very much. Since you've done the introduction for me, let me go ahead with my questions.
Yeah.
My first question is on public transport and shares of the ministry in Cairo inspecting about 300 buses. I want to find out, when are the buses coming to Ghana?
Well, I think that, again, the transport minister will be in the best position to give you specific dates. What I do know is that there is such an engagement between the transport ministry and a firm in Egypt to supply some buses to the Metro Mass. In fact, there's an arrangement between the Metro Mass Transport company itself and that entity. The fine details are being worked out, and as and when they are ready to share information with the public, that will become public. So I think that will suffice for now. It's not something that will be hidden or can be hidden.
All right.
From the public, yes.
Then my second question has to do still in the energy sector.
Yes.
We know that Gridco, VRA, BUI, and Ghana Gas are also owed. But the statement issued by the ministry never mentioned it. Can you shed some light on their situation, especially their financial situation as we speak?
Well, I think that indeed the president in his first State of the Nation address highlighted the dire situation of the energy sector. There were monumental, mammoth debts that we had inherited. I think up to about 80 billion Ghana cedis or so was owed in debt to various players in the energy sector, including some states entities in there. The idea has been to liquidate as much of this debt as possible, owe some outstanding money. But the commitment that the government has shown, that the finance minister has shown to pay substantial amounts will follow through in this year, and more payments will be made. Mind you, last year, there's something they call the energy sector financing shortfall. Essentially, if you were to break it down, the amount of money it costs to generate electricity is far more than what is collected. So the electricity tariff you and I pay, it may be on the high side, but when you put all of it together, it is always lagging behind how much it costs to generate that electricity. It is due to various factors. There are inefficiencies and other things that need to be addressed to achieve some parity. So at all material types, the energy sector players, the energy ministry, does not have enough money to be able to generate electricity and sell it at the commercial rate to recover all the money. So in order to meet that shortfall, this year, the amount has reduced to 15 billion Ghana cedis because of some adjustments that have been made. Now you can imagine, so if you put 27 billion together with 15 billion, you are talking about 42 billion. You can imagine what 42 billion Ghana cedis can do in other sectors. But we have had to commit it to the energy sector in order to bridge the shortfall. That is why government in the 2026 budgets are now cost of generating this power, so that having to take public funds to, and a lot of things are happening. One of them is financial discipline. You recall that in the early stages of this government, we revealed that ECG, for instance, was engaged in a lot of financial indiscipline. There was a year, I think 2024, in which they budgeted to spend around 800 million Ghana cedis in procurement. Yet we came into power to discover that they had spent up to 7 billion Ghana cedis, overshooting the budget by hundreds of percentage points. Now, they procured equipment that they did not need for up to 15 years. But bought cables that they wouldn't need for 15 years. You know, all of that has been nipped in the bud. And now the energy minister is stamping his authority to ensure that ECG and other utility players stick to approved budgets and exhibit financial discipline to ensure that we have an energy sector that is fit for purpose and is able to serve the needs of the people of Ghana.
Well, my next issue has to do with JUSAC.
Yes.
Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana has just announced an indefinite strike on 19th of this month. I want to find out what has so far, been done, what communication has gone on since the announcement was made. And also, let me ask my last one and go and resume my seat. It is obvious that inflation has come down. Fuel prices are down. However, utility prices are up. But there's a cross-section of Ghanaians who believe that all the positive, the expected positive impact, the
Corporation. The JUSAC strike action is regrettable. It's not a desirable situation. But I'm sure that there are long-established protocols and processes to address industrial action, and those will be triggered to address whatever dispute. Now, regarding the alleged disparity between macroeconomic gains and the cost of living and the reality on the ground, I think that, first of all of us public officials are required to show respect and sensitivity to the people on whose behalf we manage the public purse. So we are not allowed or permitted to exaggerate the impact of government policy beyond reasonable limits. So we can't say what is not there. It does not mean, however, that where there are clear, indisputable facts, they should not be asserted. Or that when people attempt to distort the facts for sectarian and partisan gain, the facts should not be corrected. We say, it is not accurate that all the macroeconomic gains we've made have not reflected in the pocket of the people. That is simply not accurate. Now, I have endeavored to look for absolute, authentic facts, because I too am interested. You forget about the fact that I also live in Ghana. and I go to the same markets and I patronize the same services that we all patronize in this country. So I know for a fact, and it is not disputable, and I say this with all the reverence and respect I can muster for the people of Ghana, that there has been a decline in the cost of living. They say, I don't know whether you own a car, but anybody who lives in Ghana and bought fuel under the previous government cannot say that fuel prices have not reduced. Look, the vehicle I used for my campaign in the Abra Sebu Kwamankese conference, and the roads there were pretty bad, used to cost me 2,000 Ghana cedis every time I filled it. I use the same vehicle today. It cost me 1,400 to fill it. That is a saving of 600 Ghana cedis. Mr. Yeah, if you went to the 1,400, you cannot say that there has not been a reduction and that the stability or the gains in the macroeconomy have not reflected in your pocket. That simply cannot be true. What are the facts? There was a time when fuel sold for 23 cedis a liter. That translated, therefore, to about 115 Ghana cedis, or 103 Ghana cedis a gallon. Because in Ghana, we use 4.5 to determine a gallon. Today, it will not cost you that much. It will cost you around 67 Ghana cedis a gallon. That is a reduction. Again, in terms of the cost of everyday items, look, I have a list, hundreds of items. I have endeavored to check, and all of them have gone down. And as a matter of fact also, and I'm an MP, so I know that when the 2025 budget was presented, Guta was summoned by the Trade Committee of Parliament. And these questions were put to them. Important macroeconomic indicators had softened. Guta produced evidence of a list of 4,500 different items whose prices they had reduced. They gave that information. Indeed, it is contained in the report of the Trade Committee of Parliament. And Parliament is a house of record. It has gone down. They say, yeah, I go to the same market you go to. So I know for a fact that items that I used to buy at a certain price are no longer at that same price. A sack of maize does not sell for what it's sold for under the NDC, under the NPP. A bag of rice doesn't sell for the same price. Same for a bag of sugar. A box of cooking oil. All of those ones have reduced. Indeed, I have obtained data from the ports. Komla, if you managed somehow to purchase a 2024 Toyota Corolla Salonka and brought it into Ghana in April of last year, the home delivery value for a 2024 Toyota Corolla would be around $19,000. The duty that you were going to pay on it would be around $7,743. The exchange rate at the time, 78 cedis as duty to clear this your 2024 Toyota Corolla. Coming up by December of last year, at an exchange rate of 11.10, you were going to pay 85,000. It meant that the duty had reduced by 33,000 Ghana cedis. You cannot say that this is not money that you have saved. Toyota Land Cruiser, and we politicians are often seen in Toyota Land Cruisers. The home delivery value of a Toyota Land Cruiser as of April was 120, and I'm talking a standard $125,000 as I indicated. If you use the exchange rate of April, 15.46, and you know that is a relatively conservative exchange rate at the time, you were going to pay 260,000 Ghana cedis for duty. The same Land Cruiser, the same spec, the same make, the same home delivery value, because the exchange rate had declined to about 10.78 Ghana cedis, you were going to pay 181,000, which is a saving of 78,000 Ghana cedis. You cannot say in the face of this evidence that the cost of living had not come down. So it is important that, yes, people criticize government policy, but to pretend that what is obvious to all of us doesn't exist is not helpful. And it is like swimming against a waterfall. You are not going to succeed because it is so clear. When a man goes to the pay, with all the humility I can master, that we would wish that prices fell even further. We wish that prices even fell further. But the reality, the objective fact, is that prices are falling. And they have arisen because of the competence that has attended the management of the Ghanaian economy. The exchange rate, indeed, let me quote the former flag bearer of the new Patriotic Party, Dr. Maubia, when he made his infamous declaration at the Central University that if the fundamentals of the economy are weak, the exchange rates will expose you. He made an even more important declaration or claim. He said, for an economy like ours, the most important indicator is the exchange rate. And indeed, for many years, the exchange rate had become the source of concern for businesses and for the ordinary Ghanaian, because we are heavily import dependent. It will take a bit of time to bridge the gap between import and export. We should at first achieve import substitution, then we can think about exporting further. It will take, it's a mid to long term objective. But as we speak, the people of Ghana cannot wait 10 to 20 years for the cost of living to come down because we address the issue of importation. Something needed to be done about the exchange rate, and that is precisely what has been done through the Gold Board arrangement, through the exercise of fiscal discipline, which has re-injected confidence into the economy. So the same capital flight that we used to suffer under the MPP is no longer the case. It is a reason why the CD has stabilized, and it has reflected in all parts of the Ghanaian economy. So the simple and short answer to your question, Mr. Iya of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, is that the cost of living has come down, and the evidence speaks to same. And this is not exaggeration or hyperbole. Things to go down even further. It eases the burden on all of us. But we cannot dispute what is obvious. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good morning, Minister. I'm Salamat Kukwa Painto. I'm with the Despite Media, of the Women Development Bank. Secondly, Minister, I would also want you to give us updates on the start of the 24-hour economy policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Those are two very important questions. And I note that you've taken interest in gender-related matters, which is all well and good. Mr. Iya of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation did not champion the cause of women. So you have addressed that imbalance. Yes, the Women's Development Bank was a major campaign promise. And I recall during the campaign in the Abra Sebu Kwamenkesi constituency where I campaigned to become MP. Anytime I went out to campaign and I mentioned that promise, it got the loudest applause and plaudits from members of the electorate in that constituency. That is because there are many women who require some capital, micro credits, to engage in some trading activity or some other business activity to help sustain themselves and their families. But the existing commercial banks are such that they simply do not have access to this microcredit. So it's of Ghanaian women. So the promise was that we will set up a women's development bank, capitalize it so that they can lend to women at all levels of the Ghanaian economy. Indeed, in the 2025 budget, 51 million Ghana cedis was allocated. And that was meant to help finance the processes that will lead to setting up the structures for the bank. In the 2026 budget, 401 million Ghana cedis has also been allocated. I can assure you that under the auspices of the Vice President, work on the Women's Development Bank has gone really far. And in all likelihood, this year, it will be rolled out so that Salamatu and your colleagues can storm. I'm not sure what Mr. Iya makes of it, seeing as it is a Women's Development Bank. I don't know what will be in store for. It's made up of women, and women have proven themselves to be very entrepreneurial and enterprising and are able to turn around capital for the betterment of the families. It is something that will go a long way to help address the economic concerns of Ghanaian women. So we look forward to doing this as expeditiously as possible to bring relief to our women. On the 24-hour economy, again, President Mahama and his government do not believe in ad hoc policy making. We don't believe in just sloganeering. When you want to set up a system, it is better to be meticulous and take the time required to set up the structures properly, so that when you take off, you don't suffer some of the implementation hiccups that other programs have suffered. Indeed, a wise man once said that a fool learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. We've had a series of policies that have failed to endure because of how those policies were set up. We have taken a cue and therefore are working meticulously and painstakingly to address this. So the president had appointed an advisor in the shape of Mr. Guzitano, who recruited a team who have been working on this. At this moment, they have been able to work to put together the framework for a 24-hour economic authority, which would then have the powers and the necessary jurisdiction to implement this seamlessly. You notice that in the budget, over 100 million Ghana cedis has been allocated to them to finance their activities and operations. And in all likelihood, this year, the implementation will begin. Once they set up properly, then organizations that are interested in this 24-hour economy program can then register and benefit from the incentive packages that were advertised when we were campaigning. Indeed, there are public organizations that are already doing that. Last week, I was with the president when he visited the Ghana Publishing Company Limited, and they showed that because of the introduction of a 24-hour economy policy or 24-hour operating policy, their revenues have shot up dramatically, and they are in a much better position than before. The ports, or the Tama port, has also started a similar activity, and it is the hope that by the close of this year, more organizations will come on board because the authority would have been set up, and they will have the capacity then to engage. The biggest motivation for wanting to engage in a 24-hour economy, apart from economic expansion, is job creation, because you know that the unemployment situation in Ghana is unacceptably high. I have been looking at some data that the Ghana Central Service sent me. Unemployment is around 12.6%. Last in 2024, it was around 13.8%. So there's a slight improvement. But it's like they are highly educated and want some employment so that they can eke out a meaningful living. They don't have the opportunity because they are not employed. So yes, Salamatu is back.
Yes, a brief follow-up to that. I want to know if the private sector have also come on board and how many have come on board with the 24-hour.
The 24-hour economy is a predominantly private sector-led activity because that really is a realistic approach. Government alone cannot have a 24-hour system of economic management. The private sector will lead. They will outnumber government institutions. So the private sector is welcome, except that before we are able to register them and begin to assist them to operate, we need a framework which we are putting in place through the 24-hour 24-hour economy authority. Thank you very much. Yes, we are hard pressed for time. Bismarck and Co are on my neck, so we need to speed up now.
My name is
so
Bill.
one question each.
My name is Bill from Glass Media Group. I want to find out the former Deputy Education Minister and MP for Asin South has called on government to recall all the textbooks promoting LGBTQ in the basic school education. I want to find out from you, what is your reaction to his call that the textbook should be recalled from the basic school? And then also, in his statement, he accused government of promoting LGBTQ in the basic school. And also, my second question is about the lithium lease. I want to find out that recently government altered the approval of the Ewoya, if I got the name correct, lithium and project lease. So I want to find out what specific value for money concerns led to this delay, and also would the 2026 mining policy change include a higher royalty rate for the transition minerals? And finally, is there any appointed date for the announcement of the new defense minister and environment minister? Thank you.
All right, thank you for the questions.
So, good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Romeo Tete, and I report for Ahoto 92.3 FM. Honorable, please, given the ongoing dispute between the Ghana Air Traffic Safety Electronics Association and the Ghana Civil Association Authority, what measures...
You mean the Civil Aviation Authority?
Yes, please.
Okay.
What measure is the government taking to ensure that concerns of air traffic safety engineers are addressed? And please, recently, we've seen Tor and Valco working. Can you please give us the working status of the Commander Sugar Factory? Thank you.
All right. Yes. Okay, so let me answer these. And then, so last three. All right. You asked a question about claims by my good friend, the Reverend Tim Fojo, about LGBT. You say that he says that government is promoting LGBT. The Reverend Tim Fojo is a good friend of mine. He's my neighbor. When you move out of AAK, you go into his constituency. So I have quite healthy relations with him. But I think that sometimes he gets carried away in his advocacy. I have a friend who describes that conduct as overzealous charlatanism. You see, he was in government, and we had similar happenings where there were things in there that we found distasteful and at variance with Ghanaian cultural norms and practices. There was some public outcry. I think that curricula was withdrawn. Even before Reverend Tim Fodjo went out to make these claims, the NACA itself had withdrawn about 700 or so copies of the manual. It is a manual. It's an instruction manual to teachers of physical education and health in senior high schools. I think there's just one line about the description of gender, which proved problematic and offensive to the sensibilities of the people of Ghana. That has subsequently been withdrawn. Indeed, I have been sent a copy of the approved manual by NACA, and it does not contain the offending words. So that matter has been addressed. Government certainly is not about to promote anything that is at variance with Ghanaian culture. So whereas we welcome scrutiny, it's important that such claims are toned down on. Overzealous charlatanism, it is not something that we should encourage. It is not necessary to attempt to put what is not there in place. It doesn't help anybody. Yes, you can draw attention. Clearly, this would be a slip, or that somebody was not paying too much attention. You understand me? But it is not government policy to promote conduct that is at variance with Ghanaian culture. And that is that the NACA has taken remedial action and the matter stands resolved. On the lithium project, I think that the lands minister has explained that developments in the world market price of lithium has compelled the introduction of a sliding scale, so that as the world market price improves, depending on where it gets to, a certain percentage of royalty is charged. That is necessary to make the project viable, because the investor or even the government of Ghana that is investing in the project would need to make returns that justify the investment. So if the investment does not turn out returns which justify that investment, no investor will, and then the lithium will remain in the ground. We have to make a decision whether it is better that it is in the ground or it is expected to be done. There was an initial proposal which some people disagreed with. The minister withdrew and came back with a sliding scale so that all relevant parties involved achieve some common ground on the way forward. That is being done. The president, who is my boss and on whose behalf I speak, has not apprised me of a specific date on which he is going to appoint a defense minister or a minister for the environment. As we speak, there are ministers responsible for defense and environment, science and technology who are working. And I don't think that there have been any shortfalls in their output so far. But as and when the president deems it necessary to make an appointment of a defense minister or an environment, science, technology minister, once he informs me, you will get to know through the usual channels that we use to disseminate government information. That's what I can say. As for the disputes involving personnel within the aviation space, there's a long-established protocol and process to address industrial disputes, and I'm sure those will be triggered to ensure that this does not escalate beyond the acceptable limits. Thank you very much.
One is that His Excellency, when he was in opposition, he campaigned that when it comes to the presidency, the name of the seat of government will be reversed from the Jubilee House to Flagstaff House. And we have gone through 1 year, and the name is being maintained as Jubilee House for the meantime. We don't know when it will be reversed, or we should go by Jubilee House. Then the second question is, we've sent some troops to Jamaica. We would like to know how they are faring, and then are we expecting to send more of them to help in the reconstruction of Jamaica? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend.
My name is Wisdom Hedejime. I work with TVXYZ. Now, you ended year one without any scandal, as Ghanaians are calling that a free year, no scandal. Public officers had a good conduct, and what should we expect in year two? Because then year one, you said we are stabilizing the economy. What should we expect in year two? And then your priorities. And then again, the president is very particular about the implementation of the affirmative action law. What exactly is the modalities in the implementation? And then I want to know the Media Development Fund, when is it going to be rolled out, and who stands to benefit? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, Minister, my name is Dominic Nana Kwaminan Sapra from Metro TV. My question has to do with the Commander Sugar Factory.
Yes, I think
what is the
someone
current
asked- it
update
escaped
on
me, yes.
that?
All right,
The
thanks
Commander
for
people want to know.
reminding me.
And also the MPP is also electing a leader on the 31st of January. We want to know, there have been some prophecies so far, prophecies of doom. You created an office for that. Let's know how things are going so far. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, my name is Julius. I report for the Ghanaian Times. Mr. Minister, early this year, somewhere on the 5th, former Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta was detained by ICE, a U.S. agency in charge of immigration. This is a man the state has been looking for. Are we taking advantage of his detention? Is the government of Ghana engaging the American authorities to sanitize the space and take advantage of he being held there and then have him extradited to Ghana? And then secondly, there's one big elephant in the room that we don't normally talk about, which has to do with rent issues here in the country. The rent government's position on this, and how are you going to ensure that these laws are enforced to give people some reprieve that they need? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So on the back of the Fuyakta question, I just wanted to ask this. The agreement we had with the United States of America on deportation, I wanted to know how many deportees we've received, how many we've repatriated, and if there were some who wanted to stay here, we're still sending them away. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Minister. My name is Patrick Asford Boydu, Radio Gold. I just want to find out from you if you have any updates or how far with investigation. If you could remember, early last year, some gold bars were seized by security operatives at the airport. I just want to find out if there is any updates or how far with investigations, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, Reverend sought to find out the status of a name change of the Jubilee House. Reverend, the simple answer to that is that I have not been apprised of a name change. If that happens, we would inform the Ghanaian public accordingly. But President Mahama continues to discharge his responsibilities, which, among others, aims to make life more comfortable for the people of Ghana and develop our country on a sustainable trajectory. The troops in Jamaica are doing well. So far, we've not had any adverse reports. I'm also not aware of any specific request to increase the numbers. If that should happen, I'm sure the appropriate authorities would examine the request, and if it is something that they can respond to, they will indicate same. No scandal or corruption. The point is that corruption scandals don't happen in and of themselves. Often it is a lack of controls that lead to corruption and abuse of office for personal gain. So if you have a system where no proper systems are put in place to check this, human nature is such that the tendency will be for people to be tempted to engage in that kind of activity. So President Mahama has been aware of this from day one. That's why he launched the Code of Conduct for Public Officials who work under him. That's why he insisted by a certain date, everybody should file their asset declaration forms with the Auditor General. And then he has introduced what we call commitment authorization. In other words, you agree that most corruption scandals stem out of procurement. The desire for people, public officials, to engage in procurement. That's where the bulk of corruption occurs. So there must be a system that checks this. And the president has established the commitment authorization through the finance minister. So every procurement within a certain threshold that needs to be done must obtain commitment authorization. If you don't get it, the finance minister is simply not going to pay. That is what it means. Through that process, you are then able to scrutinize the request for procurement, the processes, and flag the activity even before it occurs. But that happens if you have strict oversight, and that is currently what is happening. That is why you don't find corruption happening, because you are not at liberty to do as you please. You must go through a system that is robust to check any excesses. You recall that the minister also announced the setting up of the Value for Money Office, which will be a body set up to look into the value of all government procurement, so that when you say that this spend costs 100 cedis, it is examined to ascertain whether or not it is true that the true value of this spend is 100 cedis. That office will also provide an additional layer of scrutiny and checks and balances on public procurement. So corruption is fought through a systems approach. It is not ad hoc. It is not by bold and lofty declarations. It has to be done through firm action, and that is what is happening. So these systems will continue to be strengthened. The president has also indicated that even if somebody is able to slip through this robust and watertight arrangement, he will take swift action to ensure that even as we hold past public officials accountable, officials in this government will be held accountable. In fact, it is the most important need to pursue former government officials, because the accountability system is such that once it occurs, it will be addressed. That is what President Mahama seeks to set up in the period that he remains government. Of course, the affirmative action law is dear to President Mahama's heart, and he consistently works to ensure that it comes to fruition and that all the provisions in there are adhered to, so that our women folk take their rightful place in the efforts to build Ghana, and they make their deserved contribution. The Commander Sugar Factory is still being worked on. It is important to carry out an assessment of the state of the factory. The intent was for sugar to be produced there, so that we cut down on the large volumes of sugar imports as a way of even addressing the problems with the exchange, because you need foreign currency to be able to do this importation if it is coming from outside the 2016. What was left was for the cultivation of a plantation, and then a system to offtake from outgrowers to feed the factory. The MPP failed to do that and left the factory in a state of disrepair. Once we took over, it was necessary to assess the situation and look for the best approach to get the factory to become operational. I'm confident that the trade minister, when she takes her turn at this program next week, will shed light on the status of the Commander Sugar Factory and indicate clearly what government is doing to bring it back to fruition. Let me indicate that there's no office of prophecy. What it is that there's a designated official who liaises with the religious community, because it's an important section of society, and the government has to be sensitive to the beliefs and aspirations of its people. So there's an officer who has the mandate to liaise with religious organizations. For a long time, the Ghanaian public has become concerned about the proliferation of prophecies, especially on the 31st December. And all manner of claims are made, some of which, whatever claims are made, are examined, so that people do not use that as an avenue to create needless panic and exploit people, what have you. So that is what it is about. It is not an office dedicated to prophecy, no. It's an office dedicated to maintaining relations between governments and an important section of society, which is the religious community. That is what it is. Ken Oforiatta, like all public officials, we are subject to scrutiny. So whether you are in government or outside government, once you have served in public office, you must be open to scrutiny and accountability. There are many public officials, including some who served under President Mahama during his first tenure, who were subjected to all manner of judicial processes with a view to exerting accountability from them. And Mr. Ken Oforiatta was in government when that happened. So I see no reason why he should seek to evade accountability when similar questions are. Indeed, President Mahama himself interviewed by the special prosecutor. Eventually, it was found that the allegations were unfounded and nothing untoward had happened. He has done nothing untoward. I think that he should avail himself to the appropriate authorities to carry out their investigations. Indeed, the Attorney General has indicated that he has sent a formal extradition request to the authority. I think that his visa was revoked, which then appeared in court. Depending on the outcome of the court proceedings, I think that the appropriate steps will be taken. But the Ghanaian government is interested in holding all public officials to account. And if the investigative authorities rent, the rent laws and abuse and exploitation. I think it's a worrying situation. That's why President Rama committed himself to, which then also, in classical economic terms, beats down the prices. That will be in addition to strict enforcement of the rent laws so that tenants are not exploited by house owners and landlords who want to engage in rent-seeking behavior. And then the repatriation of Ghanaians. Again, I think that the deportation of Ghanaians and other West African nationals, yes. I think that the foreign minister who appeared on this platform a couple of months ago explained that there's some understanding that was reached with the American government that we will only accept West African nationals who have no criminal record, because the ECOWAS protocols indeed allow West African nationals to come to Ghana and stay for a definite period, after which they can leave and come back. So there's really nothing untoward about having ECOWAS citizens in Ghana. Once they come, arrangements are made to send them to their respective countries. And as far as I know, that has been done. As and when they come, they are processed and sent to their countries of origin. And there's really no difficulty as we speak with that arrangement. In terms of the specific numbers, I think that an update can be obtained from the foreign ministry, and I'll be more than happy to put it out once that update becomes available. Thank you very much. Yes, the Media Development Fund is something that we are mulling. We've had challenges with it in the past. It was well intentioned to assist the media, as the name implies, to develop and take care of some welfare issues of journalists. But it ran into some difficulties. We've learned lessons from that, so we are currently engaged in discussions and efforts to revitalize it so that when it comes back, it serves a more useful purpose than before. Which question was that? Well, I can get an update for you from the National Security Secretariat, yes. Last question, yeah. Microphone, yeah.
If you can spare some moments and speak about the fight against Galamsey. The first year of your government.
Yes, I think significant efforts.
NIMOs and the rest.
Yes, in fact,
tell us something. What
only this morning I woke up
to of the water and all of that.
I woke up this morning to a briefing by NIMOs on some action that they have taken against Ghana, and they do it on a daily basis. Significant gains have been made since we came to power. When we came to power, around this time last year, there were 9 forest reserves that were under the control of bandits, non-state actors. As I speak, those 9 forest reserves have been reclaimed by government. The infamous LI 2462 now stands revoked, and further effort will be made to tighten the laws in the Mining and Mineral Act to make it impossible for anybody to mine in a forest reserve. Others have dockets being prepared on them. The Attorney General and Minister for Justice is working towards setting up special courts. Indeed, Cabinet has considered the introduction of the tribunals. That's one of the ways that we can hasten the prosecution process without hastening the process. There's now a process to regulate the influx of excavators, so that you cannot just get up and go and import an excavator under the pretext of engaging in lawful activity, only for it to end up in illegal mining. So the system has been put in place to curb it. Excavators have actually been seized and destroyed. Others are under the custody of the security agencies. We have seized shamfans, we have seized water pumps and donated same to farmers to use for lawful activity and water. So a lot of work has been done. But of course, we are the first to admit that more needs to be done, especially to bring back our water bodies to the desirable quality that will be safe for human consumption. That will be achieved. But NIMOS remains the arrowhead through which government is pursuing this unlawful activity that we call Galamsey, which has become a threat to all of us. Thank you very much. So in the interest, Akos, okay, I'll give you a special dispensation.
Thank you.
Affirmative action.
You were bold enough to mention that the previous government had about over 300 staff at the presidency. I want to know concrete figures. How many staff do we have here?
I can tell you for free
at the
that the numbers here are far less. Indeed, we are required by law this quarter, I think by March or so, to present the list to Parliament. So you will see. I think that the numbers are being compiled, but I know for a fact that it is far less than what we inherited from the previous administration. And when it goes, you will see it, yes. Thank you very much. So let me draw the curtains down on today's edition. This one was interactive in nature, but next week we will revert to the format where sector ministers come and brief. So expect the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, and then the Minister for Local Government. Thank you all for coming.
GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.